Brothers and sisters, today I want to speak to you about a principle so powerful, so transformative, that it can change the trajectory of your life if you will receive it and apply it. There is a battlefield that exists not outside of you, but within you, a battlefield of words, emotions, provocations, and distractions. Every day, life will attempt to steal your peace, your focus, and your joy. People will insult you, criticize you, manipulate you, and try to provoke a reaction from your spirit. But God calls you to rise above, to live in a level of authority, self-control, and wisdom that the world cannot understand. The world teaches reaction, defense, and justification. It encourages you to meet hostility with hostility, insult with explanation, and distraction with engagement. But I tell you, true power is not found in reaction. It is found in restraint, wisdom, and the ability to ignore that which does not serve your purpose. Every time you react impulsively, you surrender control. Every time you feel compelled to explain yourself, you waste energy that could have been invested in advancing your destiny. But the one who refuses to react, who declines to explain, and who ignores provocation positions themselves for peace, authority, and victory beyond measure. Imagine living in a place where no insult can shake your heart, no provocation can derail your mind, and no distraction can steal your focus. Imagine a life where your energy is reserved for purpose, your words are measured and powerful, and your actions are aligned with God's eternal plan. That life is not a fantasy. It is the reality of the one who understands the power of ignoring negativity, exercising patience, and prioritizing purpose over provocation. Today, I will teach you how to master this principle. You will learn that ignoring negativity is a weapon, that patience and restraint reveal spiritual maturity, and that focusing on purpose rather than provocation transforms obstacles into opportunities. You will discover that victory, peace, and influence are not determined by the opinions or actions of others, but by your ability to govern your mind, your heart, and your spirit with divine wisdom. I challenge you to open your heart and mind as we journey through this message. By the end of this teaching, you will understand not only the spiritual power of restraint, but also the practical authority it gives you in your life, relationships, and destiny. You will learn to rise above insult, distraction, and provocation, and to walk in a level of composure, strength, and spiritual dominance that others will admire but cannot replicate. This message is for those who are ready to live intentionally, to guard their peace, and to operate in alignment with God's purpose for their life. It is for those who refuse to be manipulated by the chaos around them and who are willing to rise above the ordinary to claim the extraordinary. Prepare your heart, fix your eyes on the truth, and let us embark on this journey together, a journey that will transform how you respond, how you focus, and how you live. This is not just teaching, this is instruction for victory. This is the pathway to mastering your mind, protecting your spirit, and walking in authority over every provocation, every distraction, and every attempt to derail your destiny. Stay with me, because what you are about to learn will change the way you live, the way you interact with the world, and the way you move in purpose and power. Are you ready to discover the secret to peace, authority, and unstoppable progress? Then let us begin. Reaction is one of the most dangerous traps a person can fall into. It is a subtle form of slavery that gives control of your life to others. The scripture says, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but overcome evil with good." This is not a suggestion, it is a strategy for life. Every time you react impulsively to provocation, insult, or manipulation, you hand over authority to someone else. You allow their words, actions, and intentions to dictate your response. Reaction gives them power that rightfully belongs to you. Your spirit, your peace, and your destiny should never be hostage to the whims of another person's foolishness. Many people live in a constant state of reaction. They respond immediately to criticism, gossip, confrontation, or insult. They justify their responses by calling it speaking up or defending themselves. But the truth is, reactive living is often a trap that weakens influence, drains energy, and clouds judgment. Every reaction is a test of character, and how you respond determines whether you remain in control of your life or surrender control to the chaos of others. To react is natural. Human emotion compels us to defend, argue, and retaliate. But the Spirit calls us to something higher, something disciplined and intentional. When someone provokes you, your first responsibility is not to respond in anger, pride, or impatience. Your first responsibility is to preserve the authority of your mind and the peace of your heart. Reacting gives the provoker satisfaction. They see that they have stirred you. They see that they have forced you into their agenda, and they feel victorious. But when you resist the urge to react, You neutralize their influence and protect your own purpose. The principle of overcoming evil with good is revolutionary. It requires strength of character, spiritual maturity, and a focus on your eternal purpose rather than temporary emotions. When insult, injustice, or provocation comes your way, you have a choice. You can react impulsively and reinforce negativity, or you can respond with wisdom and assert your authority over your own life. Overcoming evil with good does not mean passivity. It means controlling the battlefield of your mind and refusing to allow others to dictate your behavior. Every time you react negatively, you play into the hands of those who seek to provoke, manipulate, or destroy. But when you respond with integrity, patience, and wisdom, you maintain control and elevate yourself above the petty provocations of life. Understand this clearly: reacting does not solve problems. It often escalates them. When you allow provocation to dictate your behavior, you are giving away power, credibility, and influence. The reactive person is predictable, easily manipulated, and trapped in cycles of conflict. The wise person, however, remains calm, composed, and intentional. They refuse to be moved by emotion, insult, or provocation. They act from principle, not from impulse. They choose the timing, method, and energy of their response. This is strength in action. The act of resisting reaction also protects your reputation. People who react to every insult, gossip, or criticism often destroy their own credibility. They say things in anger they later regret. They make decisions clouded by emotion rather than clarity. But those who refuse to react carefully observe, assess, and determine the best course of action. They refuse to allow their energy to be wasted on battles that do not serve their purpose. They conserve their strength, maintain their peace, and operate in alignment with God's plan for their life. Every reaction creates a ripple effect. A harsh word provokes retaliation. A defensive action escalates conflict. A public response to insult often multiplies misunderstanding. The reactive person is trapped in a chain of events that they did not initiate but are now forced to manage. In contrast, the person who masters the discipline of non-reaction breaks the cycle. They refuse to participate in the chaos. They refuse to give attention to negativity. They choose to rise above the noise, and in doing so, they control their environment rather than being controlled by it. Reacting also diminishes your spiritual influence. The scripture calls us to overcome evil with good, not to meet evil with equal or greater evil. Every reactive response that is rooted in anger, pride, or defensiveness distances you from God's wisdom and guidance. Every time you respond impulsively, you operate from the flesh rather than the spirit. But when you resist the urge to react, when you hold back your immediate response and allow the Spirit to guide your words and actions, you operate in power, authority, and divine strategy. Your influence grows because people recognize that you are composed, wise, and intentional. Furthermore, refusing to react protects your mental and emotional health. Every reaction triggered by provocation drains energy, elevates stress, and feeds resentment. Reactive living keeps your mind in turmoil and your spirit in constant conflict. But when you master yourself, you maintain peace, clarity, and focus. You conserve energy for matters that align with your purpose rather than wasting it on battles designed to distract, discourage, or provoke you. Reacting is the easy path. Ignoring, waiting, and responding with intentionality is the hard path, but it is the path of victory. The provoker may believe they have won when they see an emotional response, but they are powerless when met with calm, composure, and spiritual maturity. Resisting reaction is not weakness. It is strength, it is authority, it is mastery over the battlefield of your mind, emotions, and circumstances. Every situation in life will present provocations. People will insult you, manipulate you, or challenge you. Life will test your patience, integrity, and composure. The reactive person will fall into these traps repeatedly, living in cycles of conflict, anger, and regret. The wise person, however, understands that true power lies in restraint, discipline, and self-mastery. They refuse to give power to provokers, and in doing so, they remain aligned with God's principles, secure in their peace, and focused on their purpose. To master the principle of not reacting, you must first recognize the provoker's goal, to elicit emotion, to manipulate, and to control. When you understand this, you realize that reaction is optional. It is a choice. You can choose to surrender your authority, or you can choose to respond with wisdom. You can choose to allow others to dictate your emotional state, or you can choose to maintain composure and act with divine strategy. This choice defines whether you remain a victim of circumstances or become a master of your destiny. In conclusion, reaction gives power to the provoker, but self-control and intentionality give power to you. To overcome life's provocations, insults, and challenges, you must rise above impulsive responses. You must control your mind, guard your spirit, and operate from principle rather than emotion. The scripture commands it, the Spirit empowers it, and those who live by it experience peace, influence, and victory that others cannot achieve. Master this principle, and you will discover that the power to control your life, maintain your peace, and preserve your purpose lies not in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond. Peace is one of the most precious gifts God places in the heart of a believer, yet it is often treated as if it were disposable. Many people trade their inner calm and spiritual stability for temporary victories in arguments, debates, or conflicts. The scripture reminds us, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. This principle reveals a profound truth. Winning an argument is never worth the cost of losing your peace. Every time you allow your spirit to be disturbed by someone else's words or actions, you surrender control of your emotional well-being and open the door to unnecessary conflict, bitterness, and distraction from your divine purpose. True strength is not found in proving others wrong. It is found in maintaining composure, exercising restraint, and guarding the tranquility of your heart. Many believers have been ensnared in the illusion that winning an argument or defending their reputation is a sign of power, authority, or intelligence. They engage in verbal battles, responding impulsively to criticism, insult, or provocation, believing that they are asserting their position or demonstrating wisdom. But in reality, this approach is destructive. It drains energy, fuels resentment, and often amplifies conflict. Arguments rarely resolve the underlying issues, and they rarely produce long-term benefit. What they do produce is tension, frustration, and distraction from the calling that God has placed upon your life. Winning an argument may give a momentary sense of satisfaction, but the peace you sacrifice is priceless, and it cannot be restored by the temporary applause of victory. The value of peace goes beyond emotional comfort. It is spiritual protection. When you engage in heated disputes, your mind and spirit become vulnerable to manipulation, deception, and distraction. Anger clouds judgment, pride blinds perception, and emotional reactions can lead to decisions that are misaligned with God's purpose. But when you choose peace over argument, you elevate your perspective. You see beyond immediate provocations. You recognize the long-term impact of your responses. You refuse to allow temporary conflict to disrupt your alignment with divine principles and the eternal plan for your life. Maintaining peace requires intentionality and discipline. It is not passive, it is active spiritual warfare. Choosing a gentle answer over a harsh one is a deliberate act of strength, maturity, and spiritual authority. It requires you to control your tongue, regulate your emotions, and act with wisdom rather than impulse. Every situation in life that challenges your peace is an opportunity to exercise self-mastery, demonstrate spiritual maturity, and operate in alignment with God's principles. The person who prioritizes peace over argument establishes authority over their emotional state, influence over interactions, and freedom from the distractions that hinder purpose and progress. Moreover, guarding your peace preserves relationships. Conflicts escalate when individuals prioritize being right over harmony. Words spoken in anger leave scars, while gentle responses foster understanding, reconciliation, and respect. The person who remains composed, calm, and wise amidst provocation influences others not through force but through integrity, restraint, and spiritual authority. Their presence communicates stability, maturity, and divine wisdom, which cannot be matched by loud voices or aggressive arguments. Peace also fuels productivity. When your mind is free from unnecessary disputes and emotional turmoil, you are able to focus on the tasks, goals, and purpose for which you were created. Reacting to every provocation, attempting to defend every perceived slight, and entering into every argument consumes mental energy that could otherwise be invested in growth, service, and advancement. Those who value peace over argument protect their time, energy, and focus, and in doing so, they maximize their capacity to fulfill their calling. Understanding that peace is more valuable than winning arguments also requires humility. You must recognize that not every battle requires engagement, and not every criticism requires a response. Pride and ego often drive individuals to argue, defend, and prove themselves, but humility allows a person to step back, assess the situation, and respond with wisdom. Humility enables restraint, which preserves both peace and reputation. It teaches that true authority is demonstrated through composure, patience, and measured response, not through confrontation or verbal victory. Spiritually, peace is a sign of alignment with God. Reacting aggressively or defensively often indicates reliance on the flesh rather than the spirit. Choosing gentleness and calm reflects obedience to divine wisdom and demonstrates trust in God's plan. It signals that your confidence is rooted in purpose, principle, and truth rather than in the temporary validation of being right or winning in the eyes of others. This perspective ensures that your life remains under God's guidance and your interactions produce fruit that aligns with His will. Finally, the principle that peace is more valuable than winning arguments reminds us that life is far bigger than the temporary victories we pursue. Arguments are fleeting, resentment is lingering. Words spoken in haste cannot be retracted. Damage caused in moments of anger can take years to repair. But when you prioritize peace, you protect your heart, your mind, and your destiny. You operate above the petty battles of life, focusing instead on meaningful progress, constructive relationships, and the fulfillment of God's purpose. In conclusion, valuing your peace over winning arguments is not a sign of weakness. It is an expression of spiritual authority, wisdom, and maturity. It empowers you to maintain composure, influence situations positively, and act with intentionality rather than impulse. Peace is strength, control, and victory wrapped into one. Protect it, guard it. Value it above fleeting triumphs. Your life, your purpose, and your destiny are far too precious to be compromised by unnecessary conflict. One of the greatest lessons in wisdom is learning when to speak and when to remain silent. The scripture reminds us, the simple believe anything, but the prudent consider their steps. Explaining yourself constantly is often unnecessary because those who are wise already understand the value of discernment and patience. When you feel the urge to justify, defend, or prove your actions, you must recognize that not everyone requires explanation, and not every circumstance deserves your energy. Every time you over-explain, you give power to those who may not deserve it, dilute your authority, and compromise your peace. Life is not a stage for continuous defense. It is a platform for purposeful action, guided by divine strategy and principle. Many believers fall into the trap of over-explaining themselves because of insecurity, pride, or the desire for validation. They feel compelled to clarify intentions, justify decisions, or convince others of their integrity. Yet the truth is, the prudent person acts with intentionality and leaves judgment to God. Over-explaining exposes vulnerability, invites scrutiny, and often fuels unnecessary debate or criticism. The world may demand explanations, but the Spirit calls for discernment, restraint, and trust in God's oversight. When you refuse to over-explain, you demonstrate confidence, authority, and spiritual maturity. Explaining yourself is often driven by fear, fear of judgment, fear of misunderstanding, or fear of being misrepresented. But fear is a poor counselor. When your actions align with truth, righteousness, and purpose, explanations become redundant. Those who matter will recognize integrity. Those who do not matter will remain unaffected by any explanation. Your focus must remain on fulfilling your divine purpose, not on convincing everyone of your motives. Energy invested in constant justification is energy stolen from your mission, your growth, and your spiritual advancement. Silence and explanation is not ignorance, it is mastery. The prudent understand that every situation does not require a verbal response. They recognize that words can be twisted, intentions misinterpreted, and explanations exploited. By exercising restraint, you maintain control of the narrative surrounding your life. You prevent others from misusing your words and protect your authority. When you act with clarity, purpose, and integrity, explanation becomes secondary to observable truth. Your life itself becomes your testimony, far more powerful than words can ever convey. Moreover, avoiding unnecessary explanation preserves relationships. Over-justifying can create friction, spark conflict, or provoke resentment. People may perceive excessive defense as defensiveness or arrogance. In contrast, the one who exercises discernment and chooses silence over over-explanation fosters respect, trust, and understanding. They communicate maturity, confidence, and composure, signaling that they are guided by principle rather than by the need for approval or validation. Explaining yourself constantly also indicates a lack of faith. It suggests that you believe your integrity, actions, or character are insufficiently understood or appreciated. But faith teaches that God is the ultimate judge, overseer, and advocate. When you live in alignment with His principles, explanations are unnecessary. God vindicates the faithful. He clarifies truth. He orchestrates outcomes in ways that speak louder than words. Trusting God to manage perception and outcome frees you from the burden of constant justification and allows you to focus fully on purpose, growth, and strategic action. Another principle is that over-explanation can undermine authority. Leaders, for instance, are most respected when they act decisively and with clarity. Over-explaining decisions signals uncertainty, hesitancy, and a lack of confidence. Prudence dictates that the wise act with deliberation, communicate clearly when necessary, and allow results to validate their actions. Demonstrating mastery through action rather than excessive explanation preserves dignity, credibility, and influence. Finally, the act of withholding unnecessary explanations is a demonstration of spiritual discipline. It reflects trust in God, confidence in personal integrity, and commitment to focus on what truly matters. It communicates to the world that you are not controlled by opinion, manipulation, or criticism, but by principle, purpose, and divine direction. When practiced consistently, it positions you above pettiness, protects your peace, and strengthens your influence. In conclusion, explaining yourself is often unnecessary because prudence, discernment, and faith demand restraint. The simple may demand justification, but the wise act with authority, leave judgment to God, and conserve energy for matters of purpose and eternal significance. Guard your words, preserve your peace, and let your actions speak louder than any explanation. Master this principle, and you will operate with clarity, authority, and spiritual power that nothing and no one can diminish. Ignoring negativity is one of the most profound demonstrations of wisdom, strength, and spiritual maturity a person can exhibit. The scripture declares, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." This principle teaches that victory over the assaults of life, the provocations of people, and the traps of the enemy does not come from engagement, retaliation, or reaction. It comes from discernment, self-control, and the ability to rise above what is unworthy of attention. Ignoring negativity is not weakness. It is a strategic act of power. It is a declaration that your peace, your purpose, and your destiny are far more valuable than the temporary satisfaction of responding to provocation. Every day, people encounter situations designed to provoke anger, resentment, fear, or distraction. Social media amplifies this reality. Personal interactions often contain hidden hostility, and even well-meaning environments can harbor criticism or misunderstanding. If we respond to every slight insult or negative comment, we give control of our emotional state and our lives to external forces. The reactive mind is a captive mind. The person who ignores negativity, however, establishes authority over themselves, demonstrates self-mastery, and refuses to participate in cycles of conflict that serve no divine purpose. Negativity by nature seeks attention. It thrives on response. When we engage, we validate it, we amplify it, we make it visible. But the person who ignores it removes the fuel. Ignoring negativity is not ignoring reality. It is refusing to allow the trivial, destructive, or manipulative influences to occupy space in your mind, energy, or focus. It is a declaration that your vision, your calling, and your integrity cannot be compromised by the foolishness of others. The wise understand that life is far too short, and the work of purpose is far too great to allow distraction by unworthy provocations. Furthermore, ignoring negativity is a weapon because it protects your spirit. Every reaction, especially to unjust criticism, insult, or manipulation, creates stress, anxiety, and emotional turbulence. These responses can cloud judgment, distort perception, and even impact health. By refusing to react to negativity, you maintain clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual composure. Your mind remains focused on solutions, growth, and progress rather than being consumed by problems, distractions, or the intentions of others. The person who exercises this discipline operates with freedom and effectiveness that reactive individuals rarely experience. Ignoring negativity also strengthens relationships and influence. People are drawn to those who are composed, unshaken, and consistent in character. Those who respond to every provocation often appear volatile, unpredictable, and untrustworthy. In contrast, the one who ignores negativity demonstrates wisdom, restraint, and maturity. Their calm demeanor commands respect, their composure inspires confidence, and their intentionality signals authority. This approach is far more powerful than engaging in endless debates or retaliatory actions, for it establishes a presence that cannot be shaken by fleeting insults or petty criticisms. This principle also aligns directly with spiritual authority. The scripture emphasizes overcoming evil with good. Ignoring negativity is an act of victory because it refuses to let external evil dictate behavior. It is a demonstration of obedience to God's wisdom and a refusal to surrender personal peace to the schemes of those who seek to provoke or manipulate. By ignoring negativity, the believer affirms that their life is not controlled by the whims of others, but guided by divine purpose and spiritual principle. The outcome is freedom, freedom from manipulation, freedom from distraction, and freedom from the emotional bondage that reaction brings. To ignore negativity effectively, one must cultivate discernment. Not every situation requires silence, but many do. The prudent person evaluates the source, the intention, and the consequence before engaging. They recognize that responding to foolishness is often futile, that some battles are not theirs to fight, and that wisdom often requires patience and restraint. Ignoring negativity is not a passive act of avoidance. It is an active decision to conserve energy, protect influence, and prioritize what truly matters. It requires discipline, courage, and understanding that true victory is not always visible to the world, but is always recognized by God. Another key aspect of ignoring negativity is maintaining focus on purpose. Negativity often distracts individuals from their calling, their goals, and their spiritual growth. The person who refuses to be consumed by it maintains a forward trajectory, undeterred by the noise, opinions, or provocations of others. They recognize that engaging with negativity rarely advances progress and often diverts attention from significant opportunities. By ignoring it, they preserve focus, strengthen resolve, and channel energy into actions and decisions that align with their divine mission. Ignoring negativity also fosters humility and patience. It teaches the believer that they do not need to justify themselves to everyone or prove their worth in every situation. The response of the Spirit is often quiet, measured, and deliberate. It is not reactionary, it is strategic. Humility allows you to step back, assess the situation objectively, and determine whether engagement serves a higher purpose. Patience allows you to wait for God's timing, understanding that ultimate justice, validation, and resolution come from Him, not from immediate retaliation or confrontation. Spiritually, ignoring negativity is an act of faith. It demonstrates trust that God will vindicate, protect, and position His child for success regardless of the provocations of others. It shows confidence that personal integrity, divine guidance, and eternal purpose outweigh any temporary harm, insult, or manipulation. It affirms that your life is governed not by human opinion, hostility, or criticism, but by obedience, wisdom, and alignment with God's principles. This perspective ensures that every action taken is intentional, every word spoken is purposeful, and every decision honors God rather than being dictated by emotion or external pressure. Finally, the practice of ignoring negativity cultivates resilience and long-term success. Those who are easily provoked often fall into cycles of conflict, distraction, and frustration. They expend energy on battles that yield no lasting benefit. In contrast, those who ignore negativity rise above, maintain peace, and remain focused on growth, influence, and purpose. They demonstrate strength, maturity, and spiritual authority, becoming unshakable in the face of provocation. Their lives reflect discipline, clarity, and alignment with divine strategy, making them models of wisdom, integrity, and victory. In conclusion, ignoring negativity is not passive. It is a deliberate, strategic, and spiritual act of power. It protects your peace, preserves your focus, strengthens relationships, demonstrates spiritual authority, and aligns your life with divine principle. The person who masters this discipline refuses to be manipulated by the foolishness, hostility, or provocation of others. They rise above distraction, conserve energy for purpose, and operate with wisdom, patience, and discernment. Every moment of peace maintained, every provocation ignored, and every negative influence dismissed is a step toward victory, spiritual authority, and the fulfillment of God's calling in your life. To ignore negativity is to demonstrate mastery over your mind, spirit, and destiny, and to position yourself for success that reaction, explanation, or engagement could never achieve. Patience and restraint are marks of spiritual maturity, authority, and wisdom. The scripture declares, "Better is a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who captures a city." This truth reveals that strength and aggression alone do not define a person's power or influence. Many people believe that being forceful, loud, or reactive demonstrates control, but true mastery comes from the ability to hold back, to remain composed, and to exercise deliberate restraint. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active self-discipline, a conscious choice to govern emotions, delay reaction, and act with intentionality. It is an internal power that produces external influence. For the person who masters patience and restraint cannot be manipulated, provoked, or hurried by circumstance, opinion, or hostility. To understand the value of patience, we must recognize that life constantly tests our ability to remain composed. Challenges, delays, misunderstandings, criticism, and provocation are inevitable. Most people respond impulsively. They react emotionally, engage hastily, and allow temporary situations to dictate long-term consequences. But those who practice patience understand that not every moment demands immediate action or reaction. They assess situations carefully, consider long-term outcomes, and prioritize decisions that align with purpose rather than emotion. Restraint allows them to act with precision, maintain their credibility, and protect the peace of their heart and mind. The one who lacks patience often finds themselves trapped in cycles of regret, conflict, and distraction. Rash decisions, hasty reactions, and impulsive responses may provide temporary relief or satisfaction, but they rarely produce sustainable results. They compromise relationships, damage reputations, and obscure the vision of purpose. In contrast, patience and restraint function as strategic tools. They provide the ability to observe without being manipulated, to respond without being provoked, and to maintain clarity when others are clouded by chaos. The patient person exerts power not through force, but through the mastery of self, and this authority becomes visible in every area of life. Restraint is equally powerful because it prevents unnecessary confrontation and preserves influence. A person who acts impulsively often escalates conflict, loses credibility, and becomes entangled in disputes that offer no lasting benefit. The restrained individual, however, uses every interaction as an opportunity to demonstrate composure, wisdom, and control. Their calm demeanor, measured words, and deliberate actions communicate authority, maturity, and confidence. People instinctively respect those who can govern their emotions, for they are unpredictable only in their actions, guided by principle and purpose, never by provocation or impulse. Patience is also essential for spiritual growth. Reacting to every offense or provocation is rooted in the flesh. Anger, pride, and self-interest drive impulsive behavior. The Spirit calls for patience, teaching that the timing of God is perfect, that justice belongs to Him, and that strategic restraint often yields better outcomes than immediate engagement. The patient person trusts in God's timing and wisdom, understanding that delays and challenges are opportunities for refinement, preparation, and strengthening character. This perspective ensures that responses are aligned with divine purpose rather than being dictated by emotion, external pressure, or human expectations. Furthermore, patience and restraint protect the mind from the chaos of distraction and negativity. Every reaction, whether verbal, emotional, or physical, consumes energy and occupies mental space. The person who can pause, observe, and delay response conserves energy for matters of significance. They maintain clarity of thought, focus on their objectives, and act with strategic foresight. This discipline allows them to navigate life with precision and purpose, ensuring that their actions produce results rather than regret. Maturity is revealed when a person can endure insult, opposition, or criticism without yielding to impulse. A mature believer recognizes that personal reputation, peace, and influence are far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of proving a point or retaliating against provocation. Patience signals confidence in one's integrity and trust in God's justice. It communicates that external circumstances cannot disrupt internal stability, that wisdom governs responses, and that long-term outcomes are more important than temporary victories. Patience also cultivates resilience. Life presents trials, obstacles, and unexpected challenges. Those who act hastily often stumble, but the patient person evaluates, adapts, and responds with strategic precision. Restraint allows for recovery, planning, and alignment with purpose. Every situation, no matter how difficult or frustrating, becomes an opportunity for demonstration of spiritual authority, maturity, and influence. The disciplined response produces long-term credibility, builds trust, and solidifies reputation. Finally, patience and restraint empower leadership. Leaders who act impulsively risk alienating followers, mismanaging resources, and undermining authority. Leaders who govern themselves, who respond with deliberation and thoughtfulness, inspire confidence, foster loyalty, and set a standard for conduct. This is the type of influence that outlasts temporary circumstances and leaves a legacy of integrity, wisdom, and respect. Patience ensures that actions are measured, words are purposeful, and decisions are strategic, producing outcomes that align with God's design and eternal principles. In conclusion, patience and restraint reveal maturity because they reflect control over self, clarity of purpose, and alignment with divine wisdom. They allow a person to rise above impulsive reactions, maintain composure in adversity, protect peace, and act with authority. The patient and restraint demonstrate power that cannot be matched by aggression, impulsivity, or force. They embody spiritual maturity, influence, and authority, mastering circumstances rather than being mastered by them. Every moment of restraint, every choice of patience is a demonstration of wisdom, strength, and divine alignment, positioning the believer for success, peace, and fulfillment of God's purpose. Focusing on purpose rather than provocation is a principle of profound spiritual insight and practical power. The scripture commands, "Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things." This instruction reveals a truth that many fail to grasp. Distraction by provocation, offense, or trivial conflict robs a person of progress, clarity, and spiritual authority. Life will constantly present challenges designed to divert attention, stir anger, or provoke reaction, but the one who prioritizes purpose over provocation rises above the noise, maintains clarity, and directs energy toward meaningful outcomes. Purpose-focused living separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the reactive from the intentional, and the distracted from the victorious. The human tendency is to respond immediately to offense, criticism, or manipulation. It is natural to be drawn into conflict when provoked, to defend, explain, or retaliate when challenged. Yet this behavior, while instinctive, undermines effectiveness, clouds judgment, and disrupts alignment with destiny. When a person focuses on provocation, they allow temporary, external distractions to dictate energy, decisions, and direction. Purpose, however, demands clarity of vision, prioritization of goals, and disciplined focus. The moment you choose purpose over provocation, you claim authority over your life, time, and destiny. Focusing on purpose requires discernment. Not all provocations deserve attention. Some conflicts are strategically irrelevant, some criticisms are born of ignorance or malice, and some distractions are designed solely to derail progress. The wise person evaluates the source, the motive, and the potential impact before engaging, recognizing that not all battles are theirs to fight. By prioritizing purpose, they conserve energy, maintain focus, and act only when engagement aligns with principle, opportunity, or divine strategy. This focus separates those who advance from those who stagnate in cycles of reaction and distraction. Purpose-focused living also preserves spiritual integrity. Reacting to provocation often feeds pride, ego, and fleshly impulses, whereas focusing on purpose demonstrates obedience, alignment, and trust in God's plan. The believer who pursues purpose understands that ultimate success is not found in winning arguments, defending reputation, or reacting to offenses, but in fulfilling God's calling and advancing in spiritual authority. Every action, decision, and priority is guided by vision rather than by transient provocation. Furthermore, focusing on purpose fosters resilience. Life is filled with challenges, setbacks, and opposition. A person who is consumed by provocation is easily shaken, discouraged, and distracted, but one who is purpose-driven remains steadfast. Setbacks are temporary, opposition is navigable, and distractions are neutralized. Purpose becomes the anchor that stabilizes the mind, directs decisions, and maintains momentum despite external pressures. It ensures that energy, time, and focus are invested in what truly matters, rather than being wasted on trivial disputes, manipulations, or negativity. The principle of focusing on purpose also protects relationships. Reacting to every provocation can strain interactions, breed misunderstanding, and escalate conflict. In contrast, prioritizing purpose over provocation allows a person to act with patience, discernment, and intention, creating space for resolution, understanding, and constructive engagement when necessary. Relationships are preserved, influence is strengthened, and integrity remains intact. Focusing on purpose requires vision and discipline. It demands awareness of the long-term objectives, alignment with divine calling, and commitment to prioritize actions that advance progress over temporary satisfaction. Every moment of provocation ignored, every distraction bypassed, and every energy investment directed toward purpose strengthens capacity, builds momentum, and positions the believer for strategic, impactful outcomes. It is a discipline that produces clarity, stability, and spiritual authority. Spiritually, this principle teaches trust in God's timing and plan. Provocations, distractions, and offenses are often temporary, purpose is eternal. By keeping the mind set on things above, the believer demonstrates faith, wisdom, and focus. They refuse to allow temporary disturbances to undermine eternal objectives. They understand that every step toward fulfilling divine purpose has far greater value than any momentary satisfaction gained from reaction or engagement in trivial conflict. In conclusion, focusing on purpose rather than provocation is a mark of spiritual maturity, discipline, and wisdom. It protects peace, preserves energy, ensures clarity of vision, and aligns action with eternal significance. The believer who masters this principle rises above distraction, governs their own destiny, and acts with intentionality that produces lasting impact. Purpose-focused living transforms challenges into opportunities, setbacks into preparation, and distractions into platforms for spiritual authority and fulfillment of God's calling. By prioritizing purpose over provocation, you align your life with divine strategy, maintain composure, and secure victories that reaction, explanation, or engagement could never achieve. Brothers and sisters, as we draw this message to a close, I want you to reflect deeply on the principles we have uncovered today. Life will always present challenges, provocations, and negativity. The world will attempt to distract you, manipulate you, and steal your peace. People will insult you, criticize you, and push you toward reaction. Circumstances will arise that test your patience, your focus, and your spiritual maturity. But the power, the authority, and the victory that God intends for your life are not found in reaction, in argument, or in the desperate need to explain yourself. They are found in mastery over your mind, your spirit, and your responses. To ignore, to exercise patience, and to focus on purpose is not weakness. It is strength, it is wisdom, it is authority wrapped in discipline, and it is the pathway to a life that is unshakable, unstoppable, and aligned with God's eternal plan. We began with the truth that reaction gives power to the provoker. Every time you react impulsively, you surrender control over your own life. Every provocation you meet with emotion becomes a battlefield that someone else has designed. The moment you choose restraint over reaction, you reclaim authority over your mind, your heart, and your destiny. You demonstrate spiritual power because your life is no longer dictated by the opinions, insults, or manipulations of others. You operate from principle, from purpose, and from a place of divine strategy that cannot be shaken. Reaction may seem like power, but it is only an illusion. True power is found in composure, patience, and intentionality. We also learned that your peace is far more valuable than winning arguments. A gentle answer, a measured response, and the refusal to engage in every dispute protect your spirit, preserve your focus, and establish credibility. Many people chase the satisfaction of proving a point or being right, but at what cost? Every moment spent in argument, every word spoken in anger, every effort to justify yourself drains energy, clouds judgment, and distances you from your purpose. The person who guards their peace demonstrates authority that cannot be challenged, influence that cannot be diminished, and spiritual maturity that cannot be manipulated. Peace is strength, peace is power, peace is victory. We explored the importance of understanding that explaining yourself is often unnecessary. Those who demand constant justification, defense, or clarification do not deserve the energy of your spirit. Prudence teaches that your life, your actions, and your integrity are proven in the results of your purpose, not in the endless explanations you offer to critics, detractors, or naysayers. The wise act with deliberation, discernment, and trust in God's timing. Over-explaining is a trap. It exposes vulnerability, invites manipulation, and diverts focus from your mission. The mature, purpose-driven believer relies on action, integrity, and the witness of their life to demonstrate truth, not the approval of the world. We then examined the spiritual weapon of ignoring negativity. Ignoring provocation is not passive, it is strategic. It is the act of removing fuel from the fire of chaos, manipulation, and distraction. Negativity thrives on reaction, but when you refuse to respond, you neutralize its power. Your mind remains clear, your spirit remains calm, and your energy is reserved for matters that advance purpose. Those who master this principle operate above the petty conflicts, drama, and chaos that enslave the reactive. They rise composed and focused, demonstrating authority over their life and their destiny. Patience and restraint were revealed as hallmarks of maturity and spiritual strength. Life will test your ability to wait, to hold back, and to act with wisdom rather than impulsivity. Strength is not always measured by force, loudness, or aggression. It is measured by the ability to govern yourself in moments of provocation, delay, and challenge. The patient and restrained person exerts influence, preserves relationships, protects peace, and maintains clarity of vision. They endure challenges with composure, respond with strategic wisdom, and operate with the confidence that comes from knowing that God's timing and purpose are perfect. Finally, we focused on purpose over provocation. Your life's calling, your vision, and your mission demand that your energy, focus, and attention remain aligned with what is eternal and significant. Provocations, distractions, and offenses are temporary. Your purpose is eternal. By prioritizing purpose, you rise above pettiness, conserve energy for progress, and operate with clarity, authority, and spiritual power. Life becomes a platform for achievement, influence, and divine alignment rather than a battlefield of reaction, explanation, and unnecessary conflict. As we conclude, I want you to understand that these principles are not merely theoretical, They are practical, actionable, and transformative. They are the foundation for a life of authority, peace, and victory. Master your reactions. Guard your peace. Refuse to over-explain. Ignore negativity. Exercise patience and restraint. Focus relentlessly on purpose. When you live by these truths, you will experience freedom, influence, and divine favor that others cannot comprehend. Your life will be unshakable in the storms of provocation, unmovable in the face of distraction, and unstoppable in pursuit of destiny. So, take this message into your heart. Let it shape your decisions, your responses, and your focus. Let it transform your interactions, your priorities, and your spiritual walk. Stand today as a person who cannot be manipulated by circumstance, provoked by insult, or distracted from purpose. Walk in mastery over your mind, your emotions, and your destiny. This is the path to a life of peace, authority, and victory. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for giving your attention, your hearts, and your minds to this message. May the principles you have learned today guide you in every situation, strengthen your spirit, and elevate your purpose. May you walk in wisdom, exercise authority over provocation, and live in peace that surpasses all understanding. Your life is too precious, your calling too important, and your destiny too significant to be distracted by what is temporary. Guard your heart, protect your peace, and live intentionally. Thank you, and may God bless you abundantly as you walk in these truths, applying them daily with courage, clarity, and unwavering faith.